Hey all, Glenn Kirschner here. Please enjoy this video on the Political Voices Network.
Good morning, Steph. I've missed you all.
I missed you madly. Every day there is a bunch of this. Latest this morning, Trump seeks to move hush money case to federal court in a bid to, of course, delay sentencing, his favorite. So they filed a new motion seeking to move his hush money trial to federal court, a maneuver that could throw a wrench in the upcoming sentencing schedule for September 18th. This is not, as you know, the first time the Trump team has tried this. A similar attempt last year was denied by a federal judge, but with the clock ticking down for sentencing, Trump's lawyers are doubling down, contending the Supreme Court's ridiculous immunity ruling could now play a pivotal role. What say you, Counselor?
Yeah, this is Trump's lawyers throwing a Hail Mary pass, and there is nobody standing in the end zone to catch it. I mean, this is beyond frivolous. Judge Hellerstein, federal judge, previously ruled that this case is not appropriate to be transferred from state court to federal court. Nothing the Supreme Court did in its lawless presidential immunity ruling changes that calculus. In fact, the reason you move cases from state court to federal court is because when you go to trial, you might have some federal defenses available. The trial's over. He's been convicted by a jury of his peers. And now we are simply asking the question, did any of the bits and pieces of evidence that came before that jury, did any of it potentially violate the Supreme Court's ruling? And if so, was it harmless? Harmless error is a doctrine that allows judges to affirm verdicts without having to throw out the case. This is laughable.
So do you think sentencing will proceed on September 18th?
Different question. I wish I could say yes, but here's the thing. The Judge Merchan, is going to make his ruling on presidential immunity on the 16th of September. And Donald Trump's lawyers said, we are going to run to appeals courts, both state and federal, right after you make your ruling. And we're going to try to stop the sentencing because we're going to want to appeal your ruling. And unfortunately, immunity is one of those areas where you can take that kind of an immediate appeal. You don't have to wait until after sentencing. So I'm not laying my full $1 bet. That's my betting limit. And I'm not a gambling man. I am not going to place my $1 bet on the sentencing proceeding on the 18th. But I hope it does, and I believe it still can. And then what would happen is if Judge Merchan sentenced him to incarceration, which I believe he must, because we have to punish Donald Trump and deter tomorrow's aspiring dictator, he can simply say, I impose this sentence, but I'm not ordering you to begin to serve the sentence until after the appeal. That way, that sentence of incarceration will be hanging over candidate Trump's head the whole time.
Yeah. So you obviously tweeted about, let's talk about put the super in superseding indictment, shall we?
Thanks for asking.
Thanks for asking. I am super. You said the statement issued by Smith's office saying a new grand jury issued this indictment removes any argument that the prior indictment was tainted because the first grand jury was presented with evidence that violates the Supreme Court absolute immunity ruling. Brilliant. And you also, point out the new indictment took out some info to conform to this ridiculous Supreme Court decision, but all 4 crimes survive. So were you surprised by the superseding indictment?
I was surprised. I was not expecting a superseding indictment. What I was expecting, Steph, was, to get in my car, drive into the city, a stone's throw from where I am in Washington, D.C., and watch Judge Chutkan make the decision at hearings about what acts that are in the original indictment survive the Supreme Court ruling and which ones have to be pulled out. Jack Smith said, no. I'm not going to wait for Judge Chutkan to make that decision. I'm going to proactively go back into a brand new grand jury, and I'm going to pull out anything that I think might enjoy presidential immunity under the Supreme Court's lawless ruling. Because let's remember, the Supreme Court declared the Constitution is unconstitutional, and you can't do that. We have to deal with that in the future. But Jack Smith said, nope, I'm going to take the bull by the horns. I'm taking the initiative. I'm taking it all out. And the best news for accountability is he said, even after I pulled all that stuff out, all 4 felony charges remain. I still have enough clean evidence that's not impacted by the Supreme Court ruling to proceed to the jury on all 4 felony counts. And like you say, he did it to a new grand jury. So nobody can say, well, wait a minute, that grand jury heard all of the privileged evidence that you pulled out, so they're tainted. No, they're not, because I presented it to a whole new batch of citizens who, this is another batch of citizens who said Donald Trump committed these crimes.
And boy, I hope Kamala Harris
Not that I'm excited about any of that, Steph. Not that I'm excited.
Never seen you wave your hands so much. Kermit flail. But, you know, I certainly hope Kamala Harris makes that point in the debate, and I know she will, as a fabulous prosecutor, that is now 5 grand juries of his peers. It's not her prosecuting Donald Trump. It's not President Biden. 5 grand juries of his peers, right?
Yeah. I mean, these are just groups of everyday folk who probably bemoan the fact that they got a summons in the mail from the government saying, come and do grand jury service. And they are left, right, and center. And, you know, we've heard some of the trial jurors in both the E. Jean Carroll trial, in the New York criminal trial, they were kind of Trump supporters. Some of them got their news from Truth Social. Well, it wasn't news, it turned out. When they got the actual evidence, they said, you know, politics aside, the evidence proves his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, so I'm voting guilty. That should give us confidence and a comfort level moving forward into the next series of jury trials.
Yeah, same thing in the Manafort jury.
Hey all, Glenn Kirschner here. I hope you'll join me on my new audio podcast, Justice Matters. I'll be using my 30 years as a federal prosecutor and Army JAG to unpack, break down, and explain the legal issues of the day, particularly where the legal intersects with the political. Please look for Justice Matters with Glenn Kirschner wherever you generally get your podcasts.